So what are our motivations in life? What drives us through the days, the weeks, the months, the years as we race through this fleeting and temporary existence that we're in? Remember, as we're going through Ecclesiastes, there's the often repeated phrase, under the sun. And that's key to understanding the viewpoint of Ecclesiastes, because much of the book is dedicated to showing us the futility of life without God. And as we look at Ecclesiastes chapter 9, it says, "For I have taken all this into my heart and explained it, that righteous men, wise men, and their deeds are in the hands of God. Man does not know whether it will be love or hatred. Anything awaits him. It is the same for all. There is one fate for the righteous and for the wicked, for the good and for the clean, and for the unclean, for the man who offers a sacrifice, and for the one who does not sacrifice. As the good man is, so is the sinner. As the swearer is, so is the one who is afraid to swear. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that there is one fate for all men. Furthermore, the hearts of the sons of men are full of evil and insanity. And insanity is in their hearts throughout their lives. Afterward, they go to the dead. For whoever is joined with the living, there is hope. Surely a live dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead do not know anything, nor have they any longer a reward, for their memory is forgotten. Indeed, their love, their hate, and their zeal have already perished, and they will no longer have a share in all that is done under the sun. Go then, eat your bread in happiness, and drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works. Let your clothes be white all the time, and let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given you under the sun, for this is your reward in life, and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, verily do it with all your might, for there is no activity or planning or wisdom in Sheol where you are going. Again, I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, and the battle is not to the warriors. And neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to the discerning, nor favor to men of ability, for time and chance overtake them all. Moreover, man does not know his time. Like fish caught in a treacherous net, and birds trapped in a snare, so the sons of men are ensnared at an evil time when it suddenly falls on them. Also this I came to see as wisdom under the sun, and it impressed me. There was a small city with a few men in it, and a great king came to it, surrounding it, and constructed large siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor wise man, and he delivered the city by his wisdom. Yet no one remembered that poor wise man, or that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the wisdom of the poor man is despised, and his words are not heeded. The words of the wise heard in quietness are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. And again, like a lot of Ecclesiastes, it seems like that would be kind of a depressing outlook on life, except that I think, in part, we live in kind of a cynical age. We live in a time when we look at everything through the lens of cynicism. And so when we read a lot of these words, we tend to focus more on the negative or the downside of these things than on the positives that are in these verses. And so we ask ourselves, what do most people want? You look at the world today and you have to wonder if anything will satisfy them. David Gibson, author of Living Life Backwards, puts it this way: we aspire to have it all, know it all, do it all, achieve it all, be happy forever, have all the answers, never be left scratching our heads, and remembered forever. In short, we want to be God. He goes on, but what guarantee is there that we won't go under a bus tomorrow? Now, there are very few buses in Terry, Montana, I get that, so you can substitute a combine or a crash on the interstate or or a cow or something like that, right? If you knew what would happen to you tomorrow, how would you live today? And that's the whole point of Ecclesiastes. The life you have today comes from God's hand as a gift. You have it for a short while, and one day God will come and call and take it back. Enjoy life with your wife today, because tomorrow she might be gone, or you might be. And that sounds like a depressing outlook, but only if you're fixated on life under the sun. One thing is certain. It's a cliche that the only things in life that are certain are death and taxes. And I would simplify that and say that only death is certain. Taxes come and go. They come to all of us, and they usually go up, right? But taxes can be repealed. It happened with a telephone tax that was paying for the Spanish-American War. I don't know if any of you remember that, but back in about the 80s or so, or the 90s, there was a lot of talk about this tax that had been there since the Spanish-American War at the beginning of the 20th century and stuff, and we were still paying this tax. And truth be told, we are still actually paying that tax. It's just not paying for the Spanish-American War anymore, right? Technically, President Clinton, under President Clinton, Congress decided to repeal this tax because there was a lot of talk about it at the time. Why are we still paying this tax? It was an excise tax on telephone service. And so Congress, in a rare move, and something you probably wouldn't see at all today, right? A, agreed on something, and B, decided to repeal a tax, right? And stuff. But, reality was saved because President Clinton decided to veto the bill. But still, Congress did vote to repeal it, so taxes, in that sense, right, aren't necessarily certain. But death comes to everybody, and it's feared by most. The preacher of Ecclesiastes observes in chapter 9, verses 2 and 3, that it's the same for all. There's one fate for the righteous and for the wicked, for the good, for the clean, and for the unclean, for the man who offers a sacrifice, and for the one who does not sacrifice, and he goes on from there. He observes that it doesn't matter what your station in life is, how good or bad you might be, whether or not you sacrifice, by implication meaning that you're obedient to God, whether you're a loyal citizen or a traitor. Everyone shares the same end, and in the mind of many throughout history, that's a great evil. It was in the preacher's mind here. This is a great evil. Why do the good suffer the same fate that the wicked suffer? Why do the righteous die and the wicked die also? Worse, why should the good die sooner than the bad in many cases? And we've all asked this question, right? We've all known somebody that we thought passed on too soon. And we've seen people die at a young age. The son-in-law in Jody's family, gone before his time, in the sense of living out a full life, a long life. Why do children die and wicked old men linger on? Why do good people suffer and miserable people prosper? We've been asking these questions throughout the book of Ecclesiastes and throughout history. And in typical rabbinical fashion, the preacher continues to circle back on these themes in order to cement them in our minds. Righteousness is not a guarantee of worldly success. And there's no guarantee that wickedness will be punished in our sight. But the affairs of others and how God deals with them are not our problem. They're not our outlook. We also see that the preacher continually points us toward tending our own mitten. Jesus reminded Peter of this when, after the resurrection, and he goes to restore Peter to fellowship with him. And he's asking him, do you love me? Feed my sheep. And at one point, Peter looks back and sees the Apostle John, and he says, well, what about him? And Jesus says, what difference is it to you whether he lives until I come back or not? I'm talking about you. And to that end, the preacher reminds us that life is better than death. Thank you, Captain Obvious. I know that should be clear to most of us. But it's an important point. All too many have taken the dim, if not dark, view of life and gotten lost in depression, hopelessness, and fear. All too many have contemplated suicide, thinking that this will bring relief. And some have sought out physician-assisted suicide as if that somehow that makes suicide more acceptable. And I know I've been through that dark valley in my own life. To be depressed and to suffer with anxiety and worry and fear of death. And to even get to a point where you almost feel it so much that you want to rush into its arms because you just want relief from that fear. You want relief from the depression. You feel like you just can't take it anymore. Is life painful at times? Yes. I'm not going to deny that. I've been through my own pain in life. Is it difficult to suffer with painful and debilitating illnesses? Absolutely. Depression, anxiety, cancer in its many forms. One of the most difficult diseases I can imagine, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, paralysis. I had a friend in Livingston who was living on top of the world one day and fell asleep at the wheel one night and lives the rest of his life paralyzed from the point of his shoulders down. I can't imagine living like that. And yet, he loves God. And there's a joy in his heart that at the time I first met him, I couldn't understand. But still, he suffers with it daily and throughout his life. The suffering of mind and body can be overwhelming. But we must remember what the preacher points out in verse 4. For whoever is joined with the living, there is hope. Surely a live dog is better than a dead lion. Seems like an odd contrast, right? But we have to remember that dogs were despised animals. They were looked down on. They were not the animal that we think of today. They were not viewed the way we think of them today. Too many people look at their dogs as their children. We have too many people that look at their pets as if they're not just equal to their kids, but superior to them. And it drives me crazy to hear people calling their dogs, their kids, or I'm a pet parent. That drives me crazy because to me it devalues human life. All right? To put there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against pets. I'm not against people having pets. We have a dog. Well, Lena has a dog. I tolerate it. The dog tolerates me, and we're all good, all right? So, but the fact is, I would never consider that dog on a level of my children, though I would never abuse or hurt that dog. Dogs being the lowest of animals in their view, lions were the symbol of danger. and strength, and they've always been viewed with respect. And the contrast marks that even a lowly dog has it better if it's living under the sun. Once we let go of this life, there's nothing more we can do. But there's nothing that we can do about our situation in the future. There's nothing that we can do to change our circumstances once we let go of this life. It's appointed for all men to die once and then the judgment, Hebrews 9:27 tells us. So good or bad, once we step into eternity, all hope of a better outcome is done. Love, hate, zeal, they no longer have a share in all that is done under the sun. I can tell you from my own experience that 15 years ago, had I taken my own life, had I taken that step to relieve my own suffering at that point, I would not be here today, I wouldn't experience the joy that I experienced today. I wouldn't know that there was light at the other end of that tunnel, that there was hope and joy and happiness on the other side, and that I could wake up every morning and feel the presence of God in my life. Where would I be on the other side of that step? I have no idea. I suspect that I would be eternally lost. For the greatest gift that life God gives us is life, and to take it is a great sin. And it shows hopelessness and lack of faith in God. And I know that's difficult. And I know from my own experience how hard it is to suffer through those dark days. But take hope if you suffer, or if you know somebody who suffers. Take hope from this. I am living proof that standing on the Word of God, standing on His promises, will carry you through to the other side. You know that there was a study that was released this week that said that only about 10% of antidepressants or antidepressant use has any more effect on somebody than a placebo, a sugar pill. I could tell you that from my own experience. Those antidepressants did nothing for me. What did something for me was daily walking with God. And if I had to hold His hand while He dragged me through the day, because I couldn't propel myself through the day, I did that. And I came out the other side. Wouldn't we wish for another moment with a departed loved one? I do. My father died in 2005. I miss him today. I have cousins that have passed on that I could never talk to again. And I know many people. I've had friends who died in war. I've had people that I loved leave this life all too soon. And I would wish that I could have another moment with them. But those who've passed on are out of our reach. Would someone want one more hour with you? A chance to reconcile? A chance to say what should have been said but was left in silence? My father and I had a difficult and rocky relationship my entire growing up. I didn't speak to him for 3 years when I was in college. And yet at the end of his life, we had the best relationship I could ask for. We reconciled. And I'm glad that I had that chance, because now he's gone and I would have missed that opportunity and the time that I had with him. Relief may have been just within grasp, but it was denied by death. Who knows but God? And should we stand in His place? So just as one thing is certain, just as death is certain, many things are not certain. In reality, life can be very uncertain. How many times has the favorite lost to the dark horse? Recent election results point out this. Our country's gone through a year of intense turmoil because what was a sure thing was turned on its head. The job you planned your college education around does not develop, and you find yourself doing something you never expected as a career. The job you intended to retire from ends when the company suddenly folds and a new boss takes over. Your retirement evaporates like a mist in the tumbling stock market, and you find yourself taking whatever work comes your way just to get by. Or perhaps the love of your life finds another love, and you're left wounded and wondering what happened. Too often we rely on the idea that things have always been this way and they're not likely to change. Then our lives get upended by a hurricane or a blizzard or a drought or many other storms in life. And these too can lead to death. Even death in the sense of a life-changing circumstance that separates us from our former life. We may be left physically alive, but in a very different life than we had before. Man does not know his time. Like fish caught in a treacherous net and birds trapped in a snare, so the sons of men are ensnared in an evil time when it suddenly falls on them. And certainly I think we can say that we're in evil times today. I don't think that's a stretch. Can any of us have guessed that we would see our society in the shape it is now, looking ahead from 5 or 10 or 20 years ago? Certainly, I never would have envisioned where we are today. And how often drastic changes come upon us suddenly. One moment we're cruising along, and the next we're in the ditch wondering what happened. And what are we to do? Wisdom to know the difference and enjoy life is the key. It's wisdom to know the difference between what is certain and what is uncertain. It is wisdom to know what you can put your faith in or what you can rely on and what you cannot rely on, and where to place your trust. Life is meant to be lived. We see that in verses 7 through 10. It says, "Go then, eat your bread in happiness, drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works. Let your clothes be white all the time, and let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the woman you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given you under the sun, for this is your reward in life and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, verily do it with all your might, for there is no activity or planning or wisdom in Sheol where you are going." Preacher tells his reader, go, enjoy. Do it with all your heart. His encouragement, his command is to be active in life. Don't sit on the sidelines and let it pass you by. Worse, don't hunker down and just try to endure the misery. No one's going to live your life for you, and God has given you many blessings. In fact, he says, God has already approved your works. God knows the beginning from the end. And if you're his, he's blessing you every day that you draw breath. Do you have clothes? Let them be clean. Don't go about in sackcloth as if in mourning. Wash your hair. Drink your wine. Eat your bread. Do not merely wash, eat, drink. Right? Don't just take whatever is coming your way and accept it as your lot in life. It's the movie, it's our lot in life. It's not a lot, but it's a life, right? savor and enjoy what God has given you. Do you have a wife or a husband? Love them. Enjoy life with them. They're a blessing to you. And if they're not a blessing to you, then perhaps you can be a blessing to them. So I'm here to tell you that an unhappy spouse is often unhappy because their partner is neglecting them, is unsatisfied or unfulfilled. I often say, treat your wife like a queen, you'll live like a king. And it's true. I saw a video, I shared it with Lena, because I thought, and anybody wants to see it, I think it's just a great video, but it's just a short thing. But this man is talking and he's saying that women give back what they get multiplied. Women are multipliers, right? Not to be crude, but if you give your wife sperm, she multiplies it and gives it back as a baby. If you give your wife a house, she'll multiply it and make it a home. If you give your wife happiness, she'll multiply it and give you back joy. If you give your wife misery, she can multiply that too. And it's true. Ladies, treat your husbands like he's the man you fell in love with all the days of your life. Show him respect, even if he doesn't always earn it. Treat your spouse as you would like them to be, and they will become that person. What about my needs? What about what I'm lacking? Feed into your spouse what you're lacking, and they will begin to respond. It's funny because oftentimes, we think we know what our spouses want, or we think that we know how to love them. And the things that your spouse wants may not be the things that you are thinking. I tend to be a romantic. Lena tends to be a pragmatist. She doesn't want roses and candles. She wants me to take out the trash. All right? But if I take out the trash, right, that makes her happy. And of course, guys, we all know it. Happy wife, happy life. Right? And it's the same way, ladies. If you treat your husband as if he's the man you fell in love with, if you treat your husband as the man you want him to be, he will respond. Will it take time? Sure. Nothing happens overnight. Will it be perfect? Perhaps not. Because nothing's perfect in this life. But you will always get as good as you give. Whatever your hand finds to do, verily do it with all your might, for there is no activity or planning or wisdom in Sheol where you are going. Live life to the fullest, because on the other side of the grave, you will not have any do-overs. Solomon, the preacher, he's not saying that there is no life after death. He's not saying in this that there's no activity after death. If you go back to, I think it's in chapter 4, he does talk about life after death. What he's saying is, once you depart this life, you have no opportunity to change what is coming next. Despite what Jehovah's Witnesses or some other cults might tell you, you don't get a second chance on the other side of the grave. There won't be somebody waiting there to say, okay, do you get it now? Do you understand now? Will you accept Christ now? Jesus tells us that's not the case. As I said in Hebrews, it is appointed for all men once to die and then the judgment. There's no idea there that you're going to have an opportunity to say, oh, I guess I was wrong. Now I have faith. Live life fully. Live well. Because God has given you life as a gift. And why despise it by wasting it? And for many of us sitting here today or gathered here today, we understand that life is a gift that, like flowers, eventually fades away, and those all too quickly. I might, in my mind, think that I'm 30 years old, and in my mirror, I know better. But that's not to moan or despise the life that I've been given or the life that I've lived. I can look back on my life, and the beauty of it is, if you have the right perspective, the beauty of your life can be that you look back and you see the hand of God all throughout your days. And you see how He's been leading you and calling you and touching your life and blessing you if you choose to see the blessings. Or you can be like the people who look at Ecclesiastes and focus only on the negative. At the outset of Ecclesiastes chapter 9, the preacher lays out his case. He says, righteous men, wise men, and their deeds are in the hand of God. So, too, are the wicked. And what does that tell us? God is sovereign. And we must never forget that God is sovereign, because if we're honest and recognize that we have little control over the events that come our way, we can also recognize that God's hand is in the events that come our way. What's important is how we respond to what life throws at us. Do we sit around and mope because life isn't what we planned it to be? Do we simply sit and watch the parade go by? Or do we jump in and dance with the clowns? Do we live, or do we live as if we were already dead? The preacher says, the words of the wise heard in quietness are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. The wise man remembers that men are in the hands of God. And you can take joy in that, or you can bemoan it. But in the day that we do step out of this life, all bets are off. Right? So live life, enjoy life, and live life for Christ, so that when we take that step, we're ready to step into an even greater existence that He has for us. Let's pray.